anything bad happens, they go, we've got to use the difficulty. How can we work? What can we get out of this? You know? Use the difficulty. And so there's never anything so bad that you cannot use that difficulty.
What happens when decades of hard work, fame, and success suddenly seem to fade into pain and loss? For legendary actor Michael Caine, whose career has spanned more than 70 years, life has taken an unexpectedly tragic turn.
By the time I got there, I'd had 4 or 5 years of Alzheimer's anyway, so I knew, what it was all about. And so by the time I got there, I knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly how it was.
Once celebrated for his charm, wit, and unforgettable performances, Caine now faces challenges that have left fans deeply concerned. Now, at 92, everything he's going through is nothing short of heartbreaking. Join us as we take a closer look at this truly heartbreaking journey. A legend stepping back. After spending more than 7 decades in front of the camera, the British legend Michael Caine came out in 2023 to announce that his latest film, The Great Escaper, would be his last. Speaking in an interview, he said, "I keep saying I'm going to retire. Well, I am now." Those few words hit pretty hard for anyone who grew up watching him. Caine has always been the kind of actor who loved his job and never stopped working. He was always in one film after another, bringing his signature wit, charm, and unmistakable voice to every role. But even he knew that time would eventually catch up with him. In that same interview, he joked, "The only parts I'm liable to get now are 90-year-old men." Or maybe 85. Even though the statement was funny, we can't deny how sad it truly was. Anyone who's seen his films can tell that acting was who Caine was at his core. Right from his early days when he'd play the role of tough, working-class men to his later years, taking on gentler roles, he always gave his all to bringing his characters to life. So when he said he was stepping away, it was kind of a huge deal. Because he was closing the door on the very thing that made him who he is. In The Great Escaper, Caine played the part of a World War II veteran who snuck out of his care home to attend a D-Day celebration in France. The story was about courage and memory, and in a lot of ways, it felt like the perfect final chapter to his story. When you watch him in that movie, you can see the years in his eyes. His humor, charisma, wisdom, and even the exhaustion were all visible if you looked close enough. And when he was asked about retiring, Caine admitted that it wasn't easy. But he also said, "I'm bloody 90 now, and I can't walk properly and all that." The fact is, acting demands long hours and lots of movement, which are all things that become harder the older one becomes. So his retirement was a no-brainer, even though we believe he would have preferred to continue gracing our screens. But Caine has experienced the film world go through total change, which is something not every actor is blessed with. He was around when dramas were in black and white, up until the industry was putting out blockbusters like The Dark Knight. Few actors can rightfully say they've remained relevant through so many generations, like Caine can. So even though the fans were devastated by his retirement, it was something bound to happen. But before Caine became a world-known star, he was just a young man from South London trying to find his way. How did that journey begin? From London to the screen. Michael Caine was not raised bearing that name. He was born Maurice Joseph Micklewhite on March 14, 1933, in Rotherhithe, London. His parents were not people of means, with his father, Maurice Sr., working as a fish market porter, and his mother, Ellen, a cleaner and cook. He had a younger brother named Stanley, and as a family, they may not have had a lot of money, but they had enough love to keep them going. It was quite tough growing up during the Second World War, when the war became terrible in London, and bombs started falling over the city. Caine and his brother had to be moved to the countryside where they would be safe. He later shared that being away from his parents at such a young age taught him to be independent and more mature than most kids his age. But it also made him appreciate his family more, a lesson he carried with him throughout his life. After the war ended, Caine returned to London and went back to school, but he wasn't much of a book lover. What really caught his attention were films. He would visit the cinemas, and while watching actors bring stories to life, something inside of him came alive. He once said that movies gave him hope, and made him believe that he could be so much more than what his surroundings told him he could be. When he turned 16, he left school and took on several small jobs, including messenger gigs to filing clerk. But none of them brought him joy. What he really wanted was to act. But for a working-class boy with no connections, that dream seemed impossible. Still, he didn't let that stop him. In 1951, at the age of 18, Caine's life took another turn when he was called up for national service. He joined the British Army, serving first with the Queen's Royal Regiment and later with the Royal Fusiliers. He spent time in Germany before being sent to Korea, where he witnessed the harsh realities of war. Caine later admitted that his time in Korea changed him. He saw things he'd never forget, and the experience gave him a new appreciation for life. When his service ended, he came back home, determined to finally follow his passion. He started small, working in repertory theater, often earning very little and living in cheap rooms. But he didn't care because he was finally doing what he loved. It was during those early theater years that he decided to change his name. He didn't think that Maurice Micklewhite sounded like a movie star. One day, while on the phone with his agent, he glanced outside and saw a cinema poster for The Caine Mutiny. At that moment, he said, "Michael Caine." And just like that, a legend's name was born. By around the late 50s, Caine's Cockney accent and natural charm started getting him noticed. At the time, a lot of actors tried to sound posh, but Caine chose to retain his original accent, and his voice soon became his signature. Iconic roles and recognition. When the world finally started to pay attention to Caine, he had already spent several years fighting his way up from small theater roles and background parts. He wasn't an overnight success, far from it. He only achieved fame from the sheer amount of hard work he put in, patience, and that charm that made him impossible to ignore once you saw him on screen. Caine got his first big break in 1964 when he was cast in the war epic Zulu. Up until then, he had mostly played small roles on British television and in low-budget films, but Zulu changed everything. He played Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead, a stiff, upper-class officer, which was kind of a surprising choice for a man known for his thick Cockney accent. Of course, many people thought he couldn't pull it off, but he proved them wrong. His performance showed range and skill, and it opened the door to a new level of recognition. After Zulu, every household seemed to know who Caine was almost overnight, and in the next few years, he would take on one hit film after the other. In 1965, he starred in The Ipcress File, where he played the clever and rebellious spy Harry Palmer. The role helped him achieve a new level of fame and became a cultural icon. Unlike James Bond, Harry Palmer was not rich or glamorous, but gritty and sarcastic. People absolutely loved it because it gave them a British hero who came from the streets and didn't apologize for it. And as if he hadn't garnered enough love, he starred in Alfie in 1966, and with it, Caine became an international star. As the charming but selfish womanizer Alfie Elkins, Caine was funny, confident, and heartbreakingly human. His direct talks to the camera made audiences feel like they were part of his story. The film was a hit, and it earned him his first Oscar nomination. Throughout the late 60s and early 70s, Caine continued to dominate both British and American screens. Films like The Italian Job, 1969, gave him some of the most memorable lines in cinema history. Who could forget him shouting, "You were only supposed to blow the bloody doors off?" That line became part of pop culture and remains one of the most quoted lines in movie history. By the 70s, Caine was definitely no longer the working-class kid from South London, but one of the biggest stars in the world. He had successfully crossed from British cinema into Hollywood, starring in hits like Get Carter, 1971, and Sleuth, 1972, which earned him another Oscar nomination. No matter the role he took, he always delivered authenticity and perfection. But Caine's success transcended money and fame into his staying power. Most actors shine for a decade and then fade away, but Caine kept going and got absorbed into every new era of film. In the 80s, when many of his peers had disappeared from leading roles, He made a strong comeback with Educating Rita, 1983, where he played a tired professor who finds inspiration in his student. The film earned him more praise and another Oscar nomination. There was also Hannah and Her Sisters, 1986, where he played the conflicted husband Elliot. The performance won him his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. But things started to change a bit in the 90s when Caine started taking on more supporting roles. Unlike some who would fade into the background, he used those parts to shine in new ways. In The Cider House Rules, 1999, he played Dr. Wilbur Larch, a compassionate doctor who becomes a father figure to an orphan. The performance earned him his second Academy Award, again for Best Supporting Actor. And just when people thought his best years were behind him, Caine surprised everyone yet again. In the 2000s, he found a new audience through a younger generation of movie lovers. He appeared in The Quiet American, 2002, Children of Men, 2006, and The Prestige, 2006, where he played roles that showed his depth. But one of the biggest turns in his later career happened when he teamed up with director Christopher Nolan. Their collaboration started with Batman Begins, 2005, where Caine played Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce Wayne's loyal butler and father figure. He went on to appear in the rest of the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, 2010, and Interstellar, 2014. Each role reminded audiences why he remained one of the most beloved actors on screen. Over the years, Caine appeared in more than 130 films, a number very few actors ever reach. And in all those years, he kept evolving to fit the industry. Beyond the numerous awards he collected, Caine's success and widespread respect were further cemented when he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 2000. But there's more to the seasoned actor apart from success in the movie industry. Like many others, he never had to do life alone, but with the love and support of those he holds most dear. Family life and relationships. For someone who spent most of his life in front of the camera, Caine always managed to keep his personal life grounded. Fame never seemed to change his view on what truly mattered. While he built one of the most successful acting careers in history, his real happiness was gotten from love and his family. After Zulu and Alfie turned him into a major star, he was living the dream most actors could only imagine. But with success comes temptation, with the long nights, endless parties, and attention from everywhere. He enjoyed it for a while, but deep down, he wanted something more lasting. Caine often said he didn't want to grow old alone, surrounded only by work and memories of fame. And he got the change he wanted in 1971, when he saw a woman in a coffee commercial and instantly fell for her. Her name was Shakira Baksh, a Guyanese-born actress and model. Caine once said he saw her on television and said to himself, "That's the woman for me," and he wasn't joking. After finding out she lived in London, he tracked down her number and called her several times until she agreed to meet him. It sounded like something out of one of his films, but it was real life. Their first meeting grew into something truly special. Caine said he fell in love the moment he saw her in person, and from then on, he never looked back. The two married in 1973, and their love story became one of the most admired in Hollywood. Shakira brought a sense of calm into his world and wasn't interested in fame. All she wanted was a normal, happy life with the man she loved, and that's exactly what they built together. Even after more than 50 years of marriage, the two remained deeply in love. Caine often said the secret was never spending more than a few weeks apart, no matter how busy his filming schedule was. He once shared that he would fly home between shoots just to have dinner with his wife, because, according to him, he can't bear to be apart from her for too long. Caine often credited her with saving him from a dangerous lifestyle. He admitted that before meeting her, he was drinking heavily. But after they married, he gave up alcohol and changed his habits completely. They had one daughter together, Natasha, and Caine also had an older daughter, Dominique, from his first marriage to actress Patricia Haynes. And even though he was famous, Caine worked hard to be a present father. He made sure his daughters did not grow up within the madness of Hollywood. He once said his proudest achievement wasn't any of his awards, but that both his daughters grew up to be kind, well-balanced people. Natasha later became a real estate developer, and Caine never stopped bragging about her achievements in interviews. He also spoke proudly of how much his wife and children kept him humble. Whenever he came home from filming a big movie, Shakira treated him the same as always. That, he said, was the key to his happiness. The couple also became known for their generosity, supporting children's hospitals and several UK charities without seeking publicity. Caine said giving back reminded him of his own working-class roots and the people who once helped him when he had nothing. Even in interviews later in life, when people asked about his greatest success, Caine never mentioned awards or box office numbers first. He always talked about his marriage and family and how everything would be meaningless if they were not in his life. Maybe that's why, as he got older, he became even more protective of his private life. He spent much of his time at his home in Surrey, surrounded by his wife, children, and grandchildren, where he enjoyed simple pleasures like gardening, watching football, and having tea with Shakira. For him, those days in Surrey were the best role he ever had, playing husband, father, and granddad. The tragedy behind the legend. It is undeniable that Caine has lived a truly remarkable life. He has possibly achieved everything he hoped he ever could, and maybe even more. But the true tragedy is time and how it changes everything, even for someone who has lived a life full of achievements. Caine spent decades of his existence giving his all to acting, something that was surely more than a job for him. This makes the passing of time feel quite personal, because it slowly takes away the thing that defined him. Even the most talented and hard-working people face limits. No matter how many awards, movies, or fans, aging comes for everyone. Caine has spoken openly about this in interviews, saying that he feels his energy and stamina are not what they used to be. For someone whose life revolved around being alert, moving, performing, and being present every day, this is a hard reality to accept. There is also a subtle emotional weight in the idea of stepping back. For decades, Caine was constantly active, in control of his work and his life on set. To reach a point where he must slow down, to accept that opportunities will no longer come, is a deeply human experience. And in its own way, it is tragic. But while we're empathetic towards Caine, there's so much that could be learned from his story. For one, fame and recognition are temporary. Even the most celebrated stars eventually see the world move on. Audiences change, the film industry changes, and roles that were once plentiful suddenly dry up. The same energy and presence that made someone a legend cannot last forever. That fact is uncomfortable, but it is a bitter truth. At the same time, the tragedy has a certain beauty to it. Caine has lived fully, worked hard, loved deeply, and left a witnessing mark on the world. He has faced life honestly and embraced its highs and lows. What more could a 92-year-old pray for? Now, knowing Caine's life and legacy, what are your thoughts on his retirement? Has he earned the right to rest after giving so much to cinema? Or do you wish we could see him on screen just one more time? Leave your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy this video, please click on the next one on your screen.